Take 5.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Action. And action.
I thought it was just a Hollywood thing.
I know, right?
So we
Nope.
go.
The podcast.
Right now. All right.
We're like talking.
Welcome, Dragoon.
Hey team, Command Sergeant Major Jesse Clark here. I'm the 2nd Cavalry Regiment Command Sergeant Major. I want to welcome you to our first edition of Dragoon Fireside. This is a podcast that's going to allow the regiment to communicate, bring members on to have discussions about leadership. We're going to talk about bring resources on, allow us to share stories. And just have conversations. That's really what this is about, because I want to make sure communication across the board, everybody understands inside the regiment what's going on. And if you have questions, please make sure that you comment below on this post, so that way we can take your feedback and it will inform future podcasts. So why a podcast? A couple years ago, General Hardman, Matthew Hardman, was my brigade commander at the time. So Colonel Hardman, I was writing articles, and he sat me down. And he was like, Jesse, he's like, we're going in the future. Things are going podcasts. It gets out there faster. It's social media. You can get as much information out there instead of doing like an article, right? And not a lot of people know where to find those articles at. So I found the opportunity to do that. And last month, I was able to do my first squad leader forum with all the squad leaders across 2CR, and they gave me some feedback, and I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to start doing a podcast to give that information out, provide feedback, answers to the questions as quick as possible for the formation. So, for the first podcast, our special guest is not only our own regimental commander, Colonel Donald Neal, Jr., so, sir, welcome to the podcast. Appreciate you being on for the first one. It's great to have you here. So, I'm going to open up the floor to you. Start it off with whatever you want to discuss, sir.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Thanks, Sergeant Major, for having me on here as the first guest. I think this is a wonderful idea as a commander. Because at the end of the day, communication is the lifeblood of relationships.
Yes, sir.
And we have a relationship with our soldiers, with our leaders that do our bidding at every echelon within the formation, and so another layer to communicate with our team, I think, is an extremely great idea. So I'm excited to be on here, and like we were kind of talking about before we came over, like an opportunity to sit down and drink a cup of coffee with you in the middle of the day, I thought would just be pretty cool, because I think. You and I have a great working relationship,
yes, sir.
And there's not any problem that I'm ever tackling or trying to solve where we're not doing it as a team.
Yes, sir.
And I just think together we can give a lot of insight to our formation. So I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, this is great. That's funny you said that, sir, because We've had dinner together outside of work. Yeah. We've never really had this opportunity, except in your office talking about work stuff, right? Yeah. So this is an opportunity, but we get to have a conversation in front of everybody just to see how we are.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what we talked about, right? Because we like to have fun.
Yeah.
But we like to make sure that our communication and our formation is informed. So.
And we both love what we do too, and we're passionate about what we do.
That is absolutely fact.
So hopefully that comes through in this.
Yeah, I hope so too.
I think as you have other guests too, I think Dragoons are going to really enjoy it, because they're going to see a good portion of your personality come through in this.
Yeah, I think so. We'll see. We'll see, sir. We'll see how it goes. I was a little nervous initially on this thing. I know this is your third time being on a podcast. This is my first time, so just everybody know that. Our history. So we're just going to open up with a little bit of history. Later on in another episode, we will do a full podcast on the history of the regiment, so that way it's there for everybody to see and they can listen to it. We'll have Miss Denise on if she's available. But we're coming up. We're almost 2 centuries. May 23rd, 1836, when we were formed at Fort Myers. We've been in all major campaigns across, all the wars that America has been in. which has been an awesome thing to think about, this organization, and the longest serving regiment in the United States Army, right? So a lot of people don't know that and understand it and really realize what the history. I've talked to people about it and they haven't heard that before. So understanding that, and this is my second time being in the regiment, and I love being here and the history of it. So I just want to hear your thoughts, sir, on how you think the history of the regiment, especially with what we're doing now, how present and future you think that the history ties into that, sir.
Yeah, thanks for that question. It's a good question. I didn't learn this until my first, senior level command, which was battalion command, right? So I had grown up, my first duty assignment was in Fairbanks, and I served in the 117 Infantry Buffaloes, right? Well, I was fortunate enough to be able to go back to the Buffaloes and battalion command, and before I went back, I was trying to really think about this nostalgic time of my career as a lieutenant in a great organization that gave me so much. And I started reading the history of the Buffaloes. And what I realized was a lot of my inspiration for how I talk to my battalion about who we are as an organization and what was the same back when I was a lieutenant, now pulling it forward, almost 2 decades later, was really because of the history and the culture that came from the history and the stories and the narratives that were in the formation. And what was really neat was to study the history, remember kind of, the characters from the Korean War, like Buffalo Bill, was a huge person in 117 history. And I remember his face on everything when I was lieutenant, and it was still there when I came back years later. And it just reminded me that the reason why we have a Department of Military History is to preserve these great stories. They're great stories for our nation, but they're also great stories about our Army. They tell stories about the people that made up our formations before we started doing what we're doing.
Yes, sir.
And for me, when I came here, one of the first things I asked for was the history. And the museum gave me like this handout, basically, that you probably got the same thing, I'm sure, when you came. Yep. And so I started combing through it, and I was like, what a unique organization. This place is really cool. And the reason why in my change of command speech when I came in, I came up with, before I even took command, I came up with Forged for War. It was tied directly to the Seminole campaigns. Always on the Frontier's Edge, really incorporated like the regiment when it was, all the way up from Canada down to Mexico with outposts all over the place. And then When Committed Lethal was all about Operation Desert Storm and 73 Easting. And I just thought, like, there's not many other storied regiments that have this kind of history. And if we don't wake up every day and kind of get at those three different things, or we're not inspired by them, we need to go back and look at our history. So I think history, I'm a history major. Yeah. So I've always been a student of history and a lover of history. But our unit history, specifically here in 2CR, is about as rich as it comes, to be honest with you. It's inspiring to think of everything this regiment has been a part of in our nation's history, to include being here in Europe.
Right. And I think it was unique that you talked about the culture, right? The culture, we talk about culture and climate all the time across the formation. And, I think that building our history into our culture, and continuing that forward, right, I think is a huge piece of, one reason why we're doing this, so we can get that out there, but also, trying to talk about it all the time, whether it's our newcomers briefs, whether it's just talking to new soldier, whatever it is, just is trying to get them to understand, because for me, I think tying it to present and future of our organization of 2nd Cavalry Regiment, I think currently with the modernization, the innovation, the R-struct changes, all the things that we're going through, that's just the history of 2CR.
That's right.
We've been all over the world in different locations. We've done all these different things. We have transitioned from different types of organizations over periods of time.
That's right.
So it's just built into our culture, right? And I'm trying to get all the viewers and everybody to get buy into that and get into that is a big thing, because that's going to carry us into the future, I think. Absolutely. Is how we look at it.
I think, to your point, Sergeant Major, at Flytrap, when we operated with vendors, and even a couple weeks ago when we were in DC, when people talk about 2CR, I mean, they don't have a bias like you and I would have. And the way they talk about the organization is, wow, the fact that you guys are already thinking this, or you've adapted in this kind of way, really says a lot about your organization. And it gets to your point, like, because I don't think this unit in its history has ever had an opportunity to lay stagnant. It's always been at the kind of the cutting edge of change for the Army.
We got the Dragoons from that as well, not too long ago.
That's right.
So there's transition. Even when I was here last time, the things that we did were on the cutting edge of what the Army was doing on some aspects.
That's right.
And then, with that, tying it to our readiness, right? Like, if we talk about readiness, we've had discussions about this over the past couple of days, actually, about our readiness, right? And how, with these training events that are coming up, and how we're building the readiness of our formation going forward into Saber Strike, Flytrap 5.0, how we just did the X-Tech with the unmanned ground vehicles, all that kind of stuff. What's your thoughts on, as we're talking to our leaders, our soldiers, and even family members? How do you describe to them preparing for these things coming up? Because we went through it last year going into Saber Junction. How can we now start it, get a better result on the backside, sir?
Yeah, I mean, if I understand your question correctly, it's like, how do you keep an organization ready for whatever forces it to prove why it's man trained and equipped, right?
Yes, sir.
And I think, it gets to the heart of, we're going to talk about culture, I'm sure, at some point, because I know it's your passion.
Yeah.
But to me, when we talk about readiness, it's a laser focus on your mission, right? And like I said a little bit ago, every organization in the military is man trained and equipped to do something, as this great team that we're a part of, right? And keeping people laser focused on what those series of tasks that are yours to do in the environments you're going to do them in is like the art of leadership, essentially. And so we have opportunities to test them in these big, large exercises all the time, especially here in Europe. But I'll tell you, readiness kind of can be boiled down to some very simple things. Does each individual Dragoon in our formation have their kit put together and in a place where it's easy to get to if we get the call, right? Administrative readiness, right? Does every family kind of know if my service member goes away for a few weeks, months, like, how do I pay the bills? If I have to get in contact with them because of a family emergency, is it resident knowledge within my formation of how to execute the Red Cross message system, things like that.
Right.
They're things you and I take for granted because we spent most of our careers deploying to Iraq and Afghanistan and other places, right?
Yes, sir.
But it's extremely important that people understand that level. It's like the minute details of readiness that really make a difference. And it really comes down to one simple thing. When your organization gets the word, will all of these things be in place so there's organizational calm, and then those moments and days before you leave, you can stay focused on preparing for the mission.
Yes, sir.
The ones that don't really get readiness down to that minute level are in chaos before they go because they haven't done any of the preparatory things that are required, right? And so that's kind of my thought. I think because most people join, to blow stuff up and do crazy, dangerous things, right? Because we're adrenaline junkies to some degree. The training stuff tends, at least in my observation, the training stuff tends to take care of itself. It's the static admin readiness, the family readiness stuff that really gets you to that organizational calm. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does. But it also, I think that ties into the climate culture, like you discussed, right? And I here's how I view it. So this is my take on climate culture. Climate is and some of this has been said before, is climate's pretty easy to change as you get an organization going in the right direction. It's the culture that takes a long time, right? And that's why I'm trying to build our history, but all this readiness into our culture, which we've started with our safety stand down that we did and our safety procedures we have changed, like some of the stuff that we've done over the last year, I think has helped our culture. But also some things that I think about is culture and climate and how we can change it is having good communication up and down the chain of command, right? We having good leadership that helps take care of the things that you just described, because we were really good at, like, on the tactical side of the house and doing our training events and going to Saber Junction, Saber Strike, all those things, gunnery. Yeah. But I think it's the admin side that we have to kind of tie down and get really good at. And then the other things are being a disciplined organization, right? Like, I think discipline is huge to keep a good climate and culture inside of an organization, which comes with dignity and respect and taking care of everybody else. And then, the last one is building the trust in the organization. Yeah. And I think as we start getting further into our discussion, we'll get onto the campaign of care, trying to build trust in the organization, and we're trying to take care of them across the board, which is helping impact our climate and culture. I don't know, what's your thoughts on that, sir?
Yeah, I mean, you can't have a culture of readiness if you have leadership that doesn't care.
That's right.
Like, that doesn't work.
You're absolutely correct.
Because a good leader that cares about the mission also cares about the people, and they care about, your ability to go do the things that you're going to be called to do in dangerous situations. So I think it goes hand in hand. The way you talk about culture through your arrows, I think is worth kind of like talking through. Yeah. Because I think it's valuable. Like, every time you talk about it, I learn something about it.
So on my board in my office, and I read this somewhere, it was on a presentation, something, it was about climate culture. And it's 2 big arrows that are on my board. And inside those 2 arrows, there are smaller arrows. On the top one, there are arrows that are going in different direction, but the front ones are going in the same direction as the big arrow. On the bottom one, all the arrows on the bottom are in the same direction, which describes, like, culture of an organization. The top one describes an organization that the culture is not really where it needs to be, and there's some things that need to change. And the bottom one is everybody is on the same page. Leadership, soldiers, everybody, family members, they're all on the same page. Everybody's going in the right direction. But that goes back to, I think, the communication piece of it, right? And I think that gets after it. And I'll go into kind of like my leadership philosophy of what I think leaders, we talk about good leaders. Yeah. I think for me, it boils down to a few things. It boils down to taking care of the people inside of your organization that you're in charge of or responsible for, and their families. Mm-hmm. Being present every day. I get up out of my office. I try, when I know we have meetings, so I can't get out and go see everybody every day, but I try to at least get around to the staff and try to get around to people that see who there is. But another one that a lot of people forget about is sharing hardships.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that's what gets after trust.
Yep.
Is in my perspective. If you have shared hardships, you're out there doing things with those inside your organization, and you're sharing those hardships. You're building trust. They trust you as a leader to take care of them and do the things. That was one of them. Standards and discipline is another one, which I described as part of climate culture as well. Is discipline. Having a standards, which we just put out the new green book. We're also going to put out a Dragoon NCO guide, which is going to help team leaders, squad leaders, platoon sergeants or equivalents with the admin aspect of their job, right? We're giving them resources to be able to quick reference and be able to do that. So that will be out soon. I'll get that reviewed here in the next week or 2, and we'll get it out on a QR code so everybody can get it. Any leader can really use it. But the target audience was specifically for that population. And I think the last thing, especially with the job that we're in, is physical fitness.
Yeah.
Our H2F team, the Apex tests we take, there's things that we do, but specifically our H2F team, like using them to build good plans inside of our formation to get us ready, get after the readiness, and we're physically fit to do our job.
All right, so PT, right? It's everything that you just said about leadership, culture, all that kind of stuff, like the nexus of all of those things is like from 6:30 to 8.
6:30 to 8, sir.
it's where you see it all.
Yep.
And it's where you're building towards that resilience that you need to know that regardless of whatever is thrown in front of this team, like, you have the resilience to overcome it with the team because you have confidence in the team. You have shared shared hardship every day.
Every day.
I think the thing for leaders that I think is hard is to be vulnerable enough at PT to suck with their teams, right?
Right.
And they're not going to be the best at everything.
Yep.
And sometimes your weaknesses physically get exposed when you're doing PT with your team. I think good leaders get over that pretty quickly. They're going to do well, but what soldiers really want to know is that you can show up and still do the hard stuff with them.
That's right.
Right? You can endure the hard stuff with them. And they may kick your butt, dust you off on a couple things, but I guarantee you've probably been around long enough as a leader, and you can get out there and show them where you're good at some things too. But, that time between 6:30 and 8 is honestly the only time that a leader has during their day to really build readiness. And also to baseline their team. You know what I mean?
Yes,
so,
sir.
I know, you probably know, when we show up at 6:30 and once we're done saluting the flag and we get with Rory and the H2F guys and we're doing PT, you probably know instantly if I'm at my baseline or not from a personality standpoint.
Yes,
So,
sir.
the boss seems a little intense today. Boss is real jovial. Boss is singing the boys to men.
Yep, there you go.
That's the benefit you get as a leader that shows up and is present, like you said,
Yes, sir.
during PT every day.
Yeah.
You miss an opportunity if you're not that leader.
And yes, sir. And I've seen that. You've seen it. I've seen it over the years, right? You've seen those present leaders who have not shared hardships. You have seen those present or not present leaders not share hardships, but you've also seen those leaders that are present who share those hardships. Those are the ones that you see have a more cohesive type of organization, right? And I think that you hit the nail on the head, sir. That's the start of readiness.
Yeah, that's right.
Because not only is it readiness as far as evaluating the teammates that you're with, it is evaluating what they can and can't do, which you can help them improve on.
Yeah, that's
right? If you're not there, improve with them.
Yeah,
right. That's part of it, right? That's the vulnerability piece I think you were talking about, sir. But then that leads into how well training's going to go when you're out doing squad live fire, squad sticks, platoon live fires, platoon sticks, whatever it is. I think and that's why I threw it in my leadership philosophy as being physically fit.
Yeah.
Because a physically fit leader, if you're doing and that kind of ties into those other things, will then build that organization, because it's taking care of their people too.
Yeah.
If because we always talk about preparing for our worst day, right, out there, and I think if we prepare them starting at 06:30 to 8 every single day, not putting anything on top of it,
that's right,
as much as possible, then that is where I think we're gonna. And I think also, by the way, it makes people happier.
It's the campaign of care, right? We made H2F a critical component of it, and I know we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but people are going to burn off steam and relieve stress in some kind of way.
Yeah,
PT ought to be a natural way every day, that you're burning off steam or opening up the release valve. And so, I think for leaders, and I was a little bit older when I started to understand this. For me personally, for mental clarity and stress management, I needed to do some PT every day.
Yes, sir.
And if I didn't, I was gonna burn it off in some other kind of way, and those might not have been the most healthy ways.
Yep.
And so I think for our leaders too, one reason why we incorporated that in the campaign of care is because what we were seeing, the spikes in certain activity that wasn't helping us build readiness.
Yes, sir.
And I think it came down to one thing, folks are stressed.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They're stressed because the mission here in Europe is a tough mission.
Yeah.
And it's all consuming and it's demanding. So that focus on PT, guys, is it really is deliberate.
It is.
I mean, there's some method behind the madness, and your soldiers, they're going to find a way to blow off steam. So let's let it be with each other in a healthy way. where we get to build our team and push each other to get better and be prepared for combat.
Right. And I run. I'm a runner. I like to run. I don't run long distance, but when I run, that is where I like to. It clears my mind. It helps me think about priorities and things like that, and able to come up with, whatever I need to do that day or whatever the task is at hand. And I think it's a great tool that leaders have to be able to take care of their people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And themselves.
Yeah.
To be ready for, that day that we get called up to do the thing.
Before we go off of PT too, when it comes to new people that show up and people that get injured with us when we're doing PT, it's often overlooked, right? But I think, I've, college athlete, played sports my whole life. I could always kind of grin and bear through the injuries that I had along the way, and it finally started to catch up with me. After battalion command, I had to have a couple surgeries. I think I gained a lot of empathy for a population of our formation by dealing with injuries and having to get back to where I'm doing stuff like what I'm doing now,
yes,
right?
sir.
Which is PT with troop commanders and first sergeants and no notice, AFTs and stuff like that. But I didn't get better and recover because I went somewhere on my own for long. I mean, there was a period where I was working with Doc Inouye and rehabbing my shoulder after the surgery, right? But the way my gains really happened when we started before block leave in December to do PT as a team.
That was great.
Yeah. I would tell you most of my gains came from after we started doing that together. And I think that's something for our leaders to remember too. No one in a population that's been injured or is recovering is going to get back to the team stuff faster if they're kind of pushed to somebody else. That leader has a vested interest in making sure that they get back with the team. And so we have to figure out through H2F how to scale what we're doing so we can still do it as a team, even if you have a new person that maybe isn't that strong because they just got out of basic training 6 months ago, or somebody that has a knee injury, or MSK, and they're trying to get back in with the team. I think it's an important thing for our leaders to remember too.
So I'm also working with the H2F team, sir, to kind of build our reconditioning PT program across the board. I just reviewed it today.
Yeah.
We got some things we're going to put in place, but around after opportunity leave in the summertime, we'll be able to full scale it and get it into the organization to help initially pull them out of the population to get them in the right space, and when we get enough people certified to do it inside the formation down at the platoon, squad level, then we'll start doing it down there. But I think it's an opportunity to get people, so we just don't have enough people certified yet to do it. That's kind of how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to one of the things that you said, and I kind of want the viewers to understand this, that stress.
Yeah.
Right? Talk about stress.
Yeah.
It's not just on soldiers, it's not just on junior leaders.
Yeah, that's right.
We get stressed out too, right? With the things that are going on. They're just, it's the way that we deal with it is the way that there's healthier ways to deal with it than in some of the things that we just prior discussed that it caused us to have a lower readiness and things that we were seeing. Why we have built the campaign of care or the 10-point plan.
Well, it's like we learned in the DEOX feedback that we got, right?
Yes, sir.
It was our most stressed demographic was actually our sergeants first class and master sergeants.
Yep.
I think that probably included first sergeants as well. And the things that we were seeing are really what compelled us to come up with this campaign of care. Most, in the words of a previous sergeant major, anything that happens in our units is good or bad is usually because of a lieutenant and a sergeant. I mean, that's where the stress comes from. The burden of leadership, the privilege of leadership, but the burden of always being on and taking care of our team is going to have that cumulative effect over time. And I kind of feel like being in Europe to some degree moves at a faster rate of stress. So I think people come here, 3 years is 6 years anywhere else sometimes. It feels like. So I think it's really important, that people understand the campaign of care. It really is about relieving stress. It's really about communication. It's really about taking care of one another. And then it's also a component of the campaign of care is also about like recognizing excellence.
That's right, sir.
Because the feedback that we've gotten is like, you and I both know 98% of our formation is doing the right thing.
True.
There's 2% that probably, causes most of the things that we don't really want to see in our organization.
Yep.
But unfortunately, I think it is easy to focus on that 2% that's not doing the right thing. And so the campaign of care was really designed also to empower leaders to recognize and incentivize good behavior and reaffirm it through programs that they incorporate at their own level.
Mm-hmm.
And it can't just be you and I that goes around handing coins out,
Yep.
And doing the things that we're doing. It's got to be at every single echelon, all the way down to the sergeant level, that recognizes somebody that's performing well, and recognize it in counseling.
Yeah.
That's the first place you recognize
Right.
and reaffirm good behavior.
Yeah.
Is like, because of these behaviors, if I continue to see this over the next few months, I'm recommending you for the board. Like, stuff like that is like, it's so simple. And when we do those basic things, we keep people motivated, we keep people in, we keep people doing the right thing. But we can't slew all of our attention to that 2% that's not going to do the right thing, probably when given that decision 9 times out of 10 anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what you talked about, it can't just be us.
Yeah.
And I think that leaders at echelon are empowered to, off of the campaign of care, to recognize those for excellence, right? And whether that's a squadron coin, a troop coin, or an award, right? Those kind of things, I think, goes back to our climate culture, building trust. Because I think that if we recognize those individuals, they will continue to do the things, and then they will develop into the leaders that will then take care of the people behind them. And it's like, as we've we've seen it all, our 20 plus years of service is like, if you continue to do that thing, those individuals will remember that moment.
Yeah.
When they get to be a leader and able to recognize people as well. So those soldiers. So we're kind of talking about the campaign of care already, sir. So I'm going to open it up to you, talk about the points of the campaign of care, and then we'll just have a discussion on that going forward, sir.
Something we haven't talked about that's probably worth it is like a huge component of the campaign of care is recognizing their families, right?
Yes, sir.
And the communication that we talked about earlier, to add to that piece of the conversation, what I recognize, I had to kind of think about some things like, why were we getting feedback that we were getting in the way we were getting it? Mm-hmm. And what it told me is we didn't have, good connective tissue to our families in the way that we need to say we're a ready unit. And the reason why the campaign of care addresses this issue is because, if our families aren't bringing the command their challenges and their issues, then it means we've ceased to be useful for our families and for our soldiers, right?
Yes, sir.
And so it was to remind every one of our troop commanders and our troop first sergeants and battery commanders and battery first sergeants that, you and I, we have 4,200 soldiers, dragoons, right? They come with 3,900 families. Mm-hmm. And if we're moving the organization in a certain direction and we have to quickly adjust it, if we only communicate that quick adjustment to our soldiers in uniform and we forget about the families, they're often not going to understand the purpose of why we're doing it. They may not understand always that these are deliberate decisions that have to be made. Yep. And it's just not a great and effective way to run an entire organization. If we consider the families that would come here with us part of our organization.
Right.
We don't have UCMJ over them and we can't tell them what to do, but they form the team that makes us more ready, right? So that's one reason why I think, the communication to the family, I've been pretty stringent. When people come to me now and ask like, hey, we've got to train over the weekend or whatever else, or we have to keep people late, past 1500 on Friday, I will quickly say, when's the comp day, mm-hmm. right? And if they don't have a comp day, I don't even entertain the conversation.
Yep. I've been in those conversations.
Yep,
I've seen
that's right. And people don't often know that I'm serious about it.
Yep.
So
I know you're serious about it.
I just reinforce my boundary.
That's right.
But the other thing is that I often will ask specifically to troop commanders is, how did you message to your families what you're about to do? And most of them, I think we're doing a fairly decent job. Most of them were like, I did this, I sent this message out, so on and so forth. But yeah, it's just, we can't relieve stress if we don't address communication, improving communication with our families. So that's another part of the campaign of care. Yeah, go ahead.
And I've had multiple non-commissioned officers at different echelons come up to me about the campaign of care.
Yeah.
And thanked me and you for implementing it, because as leaders, we talked about the stress.
Yeah.
It allows them also to recharge their batteries. And
that's right.
Specifically talking about the 1800 to 05.
Came up this morning at PT with breakfast with the RSS. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So like understanding that, and they're pretty excited about that, because that allows them also.
That's right.
To have their time with their family, right? Because that's one thing, as leaders, is we've been, it took me about being a first sergeant to like change the priorities of what I was doing. Yeah. But I think if we implement that now and show the junior leaders and soldiers what right looks like, I think that's going to help them as they develop, as I talked before, developed into leaders. Yeah. And then they use that as a way to take care of their families, take care of their soldiers, give that time, back to them. That's right. Unless it's emergency, right? We always talk about that. Unless it's emergency or something that's going to really affect what's going on the next day, those are the only outside of that. But on the weekends and things like that, I've caught myself a couple times, I ain't gonna lie, going outside of that, and I've actually apologized when I do the thing and I'm like, oh, sorry, realized it's after 1800. Yeah. You know what I mean? I did it last night. I was trying to get some information and I realized that it was after 1800, and I was like, oh, sorry, don't worry about it, I'll worry about it tomorrow. Yeah. Because I don't want to affect their family time, right? So I think that's a good one. And we talk about rewarding, the inside the organization with the rewards and things like that, and why it's so important. I think, and things I've seen over time is, back when we were young, soldiers, officers in the United States Army back in the early 2000s, it wasn't about that. Yeah. Now it is, and and I think it's important that we as the older generation leaders understand why that's important. So I'd like to hear your perspective on that, sir, if you don't mind.
So everybody always likes to talk about, I think the time-old tradition, right, is the old generation talks about the newer generation.
That's right.
How they can't do this, and they're not going to be able to do that. And I just don't buy into a lot of what folks say about the younger generation. My kids are this younger generation. They're smart. They have a different view on a lot of things, in a lot of ways, because they've grown up in the information age. They're, the things that they will question is literally everything, right? So they're not just going to accept things because you say them. You have to explain purpose, and you have to kind of you have to have some kind of credibility in some kind of way, because they'll fact check you. But one thing that I do think is common across every generation is like people want to do good, but they also want to know that the good they're doing is recognized. And so that's really what this is about. It's recognizing, across the generations, people will do good things and continue to do good things if they know that it matters to folks.
That's right.
And that's not selfish, that's human. You know what I mean? That's just my personal opinion. So that's why it's worked into the campaign of care. I did not see, when I first got into command, I was looking at almost every counseling packet when I was doing my legal reviews, right? And I didn't see enough positive reaffirmation. I saw a lot of addressing issues, which is great. Accountability is part of who we are.
That's right, sir.
But reaffirmation of the redeemable qualities that people have and good attributes, I think, are something we can do better at, just culturally. And it's also a human requirement to know when we're doing well.
Yeah. So would like to open it up for any other discussion or conversation on the campaign of care, and so that way the viewers understand from you directly as we've implemented this right before holiday opportunity leave, and as we're going forward into the next training events, the big training events and things like that, how do we see the campaign of care as we go forward, sir?
Yeah, the trajectory we're on, I think, is a pretty good one. Mm-hmm. And when we came up with the campaign of care, we were in a period of slowdown. Mm-hmm. And we're right back where, we're right back in that cycle where our leadership needs us to do things mission requirement wise, yep. Right? And so the campaign of care, the components and the 10-point plan, all those things are designed to kind of get after it. What I'd say at this point, what we really need is feedback. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I think we can't be above the feedback loop coming from our soldier level,
right?
Dragoons, right? So my charge really would be for our young folks, give us feedback. Let us know how we're doing. It doesn't always have to come straight to you and I, like mm-hmm. try to resolve issues at the lowest level. Right. But if we're not making good on the 10-point plan, mm-hmm. Then let us know, because I don't think anybody in this regiment wakes up in the morning and says, I'm here to screw things up. I'm here to mess up as much stuff as possible and make a Dragoon's life miserable. I just don't think we have those leaders.
No, I don't think so, sir.
Yeah, so give us feedback so we can address things and keep getting after this.
Yeah, and I think one way that you guys can do that is using my QR code, which is going to be posted below, along with your comments inside of this with your recommendations on things that we can do. So I think those are good feedback loops. I've already got some of the feedback through my QR code, I think, on the campaign of care.
Yeah.
Whether it's accountability piece of it or some good feedback on it. So I think it's been great, using that tool to be able to help us understand where we're at. So I appreciate that, sir. So what I would say is, sir, would like to open up for any other further comments you would like to give to the regiment or anybody watching.
I got a question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So I don't think we've ever had this conversation, but you're such I admire your leadership, and I know everybody has a leader that's impacted them in some kind of way, that's gotten them to where they are. So for you, who is the most impactful leader you've had, and why?
So that's easy for me because I still talk to him today.
That's cool.
Sergeant Major retired Michael Goodman.
Okay.
He was actually the Eagle Troop First Sergeant and the 22 HHT First Sergeant when I was there as a platoon sergeant. He was my first sergeant at the time in both of those positions because I was a platoon sergeant Eagle Troop and then scout platoon sergeant in 22. He was my first sergeant, and the way he led, he was compassionate. I'm actually, in my book, I've actually talked about him in my book of his impact of the things he has done for me. And he, not only was it during the time that I worked for him that he helped me realize how to be a good leader, but from that point in time, from the first day that we met until now, I met him when I went and seen him and his family when we went back to Washington, because that's where he's at. He's in D.C. cool. right now. So I went and had dinner with him. We talked about old times. We talked about the regiment, things like that. But he has been a constant mentor from that point forward. It's never stopped. Our families are friends. We're friends. And his impact on me is probably the biggest impact that I've had. I've obviously learned from other leaders across, but he has been the most impactful. So we'll say the last 14 years is really where we're at, because I met him in 2012, so we're in 2026. So about 14 years of my career has been him.
Oh, well.
Yeah, okay. So that's
pretty cool.
That was one of my dear friends and mentors that I've used for many things that I've talked to him about, whether it's, hey, I got this situation, what did you do in this type of situation? Or hey, I'm thinking about doing this, what do you think?
Yeah.
And he's just been great. Even now as a retiree, I still talk to him about stuff.
That's very cool.
Yeah, so that is mine, sir.
Oh,
so
very cool.
Yeah. So any other things you would like to say to the regiment? Or getting viewers?
Yeah. Hey, we're, the Sergeant Major and I are just extremely proud of this team.
Yep.
The things that we got to hear when we went to Washington, D.C. for the Army Current Operations Engagement Team in D.C., we got a chance to go to the Pentagon and talk to the Army senior leaders and talk to a bunch of the Department of the Army staff directorates. We went to the Hill and we got to meet with a couple members, and we got to talk to a bunch of folks that do things for the military and our government in the legislative branch. And then we got a chance to talk to people in the Department of War. And I mean, we really got a chance to go and sing the praises of 2CR when we were there. But the thing I'll share with all of you guys is we didn't really have to do much selling because people know what you guys are doing.
That's right.
I mean, everybody.
It was constant across the board.
I know. It was like everybody from the undersecretary to the chief. I mean, the things that this regiment is doing in its totality is actually like pretty exceptional and impacting what the Army is going to do in the future, which is what we've been asked to do, by the chief. So the fact that we're answering that, and while we're doing it, we're writing about it and building this body of knowledge, I think is a really neat thing that everybody in this regiment should be extremely proud of. And everybody we talked to said, tell the Dragoons, like, we're proud of them.
They did.
And we appreciate everything they're doing. So,
Chief of Staff of the Army, it was great in his office. He's like, I just want you to make sure you tell everybody they're doing a great job.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So
keep up the good work. Good work.
Yeah. I mean, I went into the CX office while I was there, and I got to have a conversation with him. He knew about 2CR as a Navy SEAL, you know what I mean? But the things that we were doing, I had to explain to him. But once I described it and invited him out to Fly Trap and things like that to see what we were doing, I know that he had said, I'm going to look into some of the stuff you guys are doing. So it was pretty interesting going across the, in the Pentagon. That was my first time in the Pentagon and obviously on the Hill. But just like you said, sir, they already knew about us. 2CR is a well-known thing across the world. I mean, let's just be real. Like across the Army, across the America, everybody is just tracking all the things that we're doing, and people reach out to us constantly on the things we're doing. I had somebody reach out to me from JBLM about the things that we're doing inside the regiment and seeing how we're doing. So, hey, keep it up, Dragoons. Appreciate it. Anything else?
Thanks for doing this. I think this is such a great idea. I didn't want to run a podcast. It's not really my style, but I think this is going to be great for soldiers in the future and to the team that's helping us do this. I mean, this is pretty awesome. We're talking about a great way to reach a wide audience of people.
Right. And and it's not just for the Dragoons, it's also for the family members and just anybody that wants to know about the Army and what over here what we're doing, right? It just gives them a inside look of what we're doing. I think that's the kind of the thing we're going after, sir. So I appreciate you allowing me to do it and you being on the show today, or the podcast. So what I would say, Dragoons and families out there, again, if there's things that you want to hear from us about, if there's resources you would like me to bring on here to talk through some things, whether it's ACS, things like that, plan on bringing H2F and some other teams on here, so we'll have conversations later on down. Again, post down below anything you want for a podcast, but also you can use my QR code again, and it will be posted as well. One thing I would like to do before I get off here, we are in AFN's podcast room. They have allowed us to use this facility to do what we are doing, and I really appreciate them doing so. I think it'll be great with the relationship that we're building and continuing on as we go forward. But also, team, again, we just really appreciate you. Thank you for everything you do, and always ready. Dragoon 7 out.